But the reality is I
Okay.
just have work-life integration. I'm working
Yeah.
harder than ever. Probably this year's the hardest I've ever worked actually in
Yeah.
my life. And I would have thought that in my 20s, I worked pretty hard. Would have thought that would be the hardest. I think at the core of it, it's like, hey, I need to deeply understand a customer. I have to have an opinion. I have an opinion on how I can make their world better than others. So that's the first bit. Then the second bit is I need to grow some revenue to be able to see that vision come to life.
Today, I'm speaking with Raj, CEO of the Martech, a VC-backed AI-powered recruitment platform. Dial in today as he shares how important customer obsession is, no matter your business. We also dive into some of his processes and his modes of working, why revenue triumphs nearly everything else when it comes to starting a business, and the lessons he's learned from successfully fundraising from venture capitalists. Let's go. Raj, good to have you here.
Nice to be here, Anthony.
I appreciate you coming. Hey, let's kick off immediately. So I wanted to start off with kind of going through your mindset a little bit here. I've spoken to quite a few senior operators, a couple of C-levels, a lot of founders, and there is a common thread here that all CEOs and founders obsess over something. I want to hear from you, Raj. What is the number one thing that you obsess over?
In regards to the business or in regards to just personal?
Let's talk about the business and how you operate.
Yeah, sure. It's a customer. It's,
Okay.
We work in a category which is vertical SaaS, AI vertical SaaS, and enterprise, particular enterprise vertical AI SaaS.
Yep.
And the reality, there's just a lot of AI companies coming around. So,
Yeah.
I have a strong viewpoint that the person who has the greatest customer intimacy wins.
Okay.
So it's like, how do you build a mechanism to create customer intimacy? How do you stay close to it as close to the customer as the organization grows? How do you have a strong opinion on how you can help your customer? All of these things are foundational pieces that I think we've done some really great things. I think at times where we gone sideways in our business is the times where we've lost track of that as our North Star. And then when we've done really well and our growth's great, it's built on the foundation of that.
Yeah. So kind of digging into that a little bit more, when you're talking about customer obsession, or what does that really mean practically on a day-to-day with you, and then also your teams as well?
Yeah, sure. So it's probably three really practical ways that we deploy that into the business. So one, we have a customer advisory board. So who I catch up with, who are part of our best customers who use our platform in the best possible way, who are getting great results. So that's anywhere from a weekly, fortnightly, or monthly catch up with an advisory board that stretches to about 5 to 10 customers.
Okay, yep.
Secondly, we have a voice of customer program.
Okay.
So
yep.
we look at, hey, what are our customers saying? How does that filter into our customer success team? How does that filter into then we get those conversations, put that into different streams of patterns that we need to support, tag them against different customers. So we run a voice of customer program in that sense. And then the third one is just staying on the coalface at coalface, just seeing new prospects as well with our sales org. So being able to see like 3 to 5 prospects per week. All of those things I think are multidimensional and like help us to feed, okay, well, this is what our customers are saying. And I think that's easier for us as well because we're vertical SaaS. So we focus on a very specific area, which is in our case, employer branding. We focus on very specific ICP within that.
Yep.
So it becomes easier over time to be able to say, hey, this is what the customer wants. Because you get more data, you get more of a sense of what conversations, the customer advisory board becomes richer and richer.
So so you stay very, very close to the customers, and evidently, you work in the enterprise space. You've got a key vertical here. You say it's a little bit easier, but it's still just as difficult, right? How, if I'm thinking about how this impacts the customer, like what if you were your customer, how do you feel that impacts them? Like it's not just they feel heard. It's not as something as simple as we just want these features, and so therefore, we've heard you. We're going to build these features. Well, what's the impact of that for the customers, and why it's so important for them?
I think every customer, when they make a bet on software,
Yeah,
they're fundamentally putting some of their own organizational currency on the line.
yeah,
So why does it matter to the customer? Because they've put a little bit of their currency in purchasing you or renewing you or working with you. So, I feel a real strong sense of stewardship around that. How do we repay that faith?
yeah,
So when we turn up to the customer at the really core, it's not about, hey, sure, they can, by working with us, by having closer to us, we can build more features, we can help them get a better return. But ultimately we want to make our customers look good, become famous. We want them to build great careers that they go, hey, part of that trajectory was working with the Martin.
yeah.
And that's why people, I think that is the unspoken contractual relationship when you enter into like supporting a vendor in a voice of customer or helping them improve their business.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Just for clarification for people who are listening to this, when you say currency, what do you mean explicitly?
Well, everyone who gets promoted in their job, who gets more money, goes on holidays, they have to build up their reputation within the
Yep.
organization.
Yeah,
Yep. And that reputation is what I'm calling currency. That's every
Yeah.
time they make a decision, they're cashing in a few chips
yeah,
of that reputation. And the better those decisions are, the greater the reputation that they garner.
yep.
And, as vendors, as partners to them, that's what we're helping to fundamentally to improve that reputation they have within the organization.
Got it. Yeah, it's they come in, and when they're meeting with these vendors, external vendors like the Martech, or even in my past experience working in sales as well, they are really kind of making a big call by selling you or championing you internally. Sometimes it's also they're all in, right? It's they're like, look, my whole promotion is weighing on the success of this project, of everything that you said that you will be able to deliver for us, and I'm putting my trust and my faith in you. And I think it's great that you bring that up, because I know that when I was a junior, I guess you kind of get hammered so much around sales processes, and this is what you should do with prospects. This is how you should have conversations, whatever it may be. You fundamentally forget that part of it, the people that you're working with, and the fact that they are taking a huge gamble and risk. And then it's de-risked over time as you have these conversations and you build a relationship, but they're making that risk to work with you. And I guess when I think back, I know that I've forgotten about that. And just you're trying to chase the number. You're like, you're obviously thinking about the customer, but you've got your scripts, you've got your templates, you've got your playbooks, your use case, whatever. You genuinely forget that this person has a lot. They have a lot, right, that they're putting in just to get you there.
Yeah, totally. They have a lot riding on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe if I were to take this all back and go back to the obsession piece, if it's not the customer, thinking about it personally, what's the one thing that you're obsessed with, every single day now, and how has it kind of defined, who you are today?
You mean outside of work?
Outside of work, yeah.
It's the family. Like I'm now at an age where I'm in my early 40s.
You don't look a day
And-
older, 20, mate.
Well, these grades give it away. But I've got 2 kids, a third on the way. I've got a beautiful partner, and that's and a family, an extended family outside of that. So, yeah, it's ultimately, what am I doing it for? I'm doing it for helping my customer, building something that I'm proud of. But ultimately that all ends at some point in time. It's
Mm,
very rare that someone runs a business for the rest of their life, the
mm,
same business. So, it's what isn't going to end is your family.
mm.
And that's ultimately what's about to me anyway.
Yeah, understood. Has that mindset kind of changed over the last maybe decade or 20 years ago, maybe considering?
Yeah, I mean, 20 years ago, I didn't have a family.
Yeah,
I mean, I had, mum and dad and all the rest of it, but
right, right,
I didn't have kids, didn't have the same partner. So I think when you're single, um, you know, you don't think that. You just
right,
think about your own ambitions, where
right.
you want to
Yeah,
go. Um, and that's fine as well. Like I think, when I was younger, if there was so much fire, like so much fire that you
yeah,
had from just wanting to get somewhere, and that's
yeah.
great, But as life goes on, you have different things that come in there,
Mm,
and it's then like, what is the core driver for you? I think that just changes as your life state changes.
yeah. Does that change your mode of operation at all? Then maybe it's the hours that you work, the way that you prioritize, the business versus the family. Like how has that shifted?
I would have thought if you asked me this a year ago or 2 years ago that I would have mm, more balance, but the reality is I just
Okay.
have work-life integration. I'm working
Yeah.
harder than ever. Probably this year's the hardest I've ever worked actually in
Yeah.
my life. And I would have thought that in my 20s I worked pretty hard. Would have thought that would be the hardest. So I think um, it goes in waves. I think there's times where you have to really lean in,
Yeah.
and that really depends on the stage of the business, what's happening. And then you never have like, you always kind of think about your business, hard not to,
Mm.
because it's yours. But I do think there are other times where it hasn't been like so intense. Um, so yeah, I think that's, and having an understanding partner all through that
Yeah.
makes everything a lot easier to do.
Yeah. Mate, I completely agree. I really do like what you're saying about work-life integration, though. I'm not, it's. I think I speak to my partner, and she's working with a number of interns at the moment at her role, and obviously one of the major topics of conversation is like, oh, work-life balance, flexible working. Which, by the way, and also for the audience, Raj and I used to work together about a decade ago, and work-life balance was never really something that was discussed as a core topic
Yeah.
at that time. From being a candidate, like recruiting people, it's just that that topic has grown and metamorphosized so much over the last like decade or so. So hearing you say work-life integration, to me that kind of speaks very closely to the way that I work. You put in a lot of hours and you make it work with your personal time. And I think trying to chase, I want to balance, like specifically, explicitly balance with family, friends, social life, and then balancing work, whatever that may be, your own business or a company that you worked for. That it's always going to be like two different fighting forces, and you really need to know how to kind of put it together, and it just ultimately make it work.
Yeah, totally.
um, cool, mate. No, I appreciate that. So, I kind of like taking a kind of um, a little bit of a reflection back. What would you say in the last maybe, I don't know, a couple of years, growing family, what has been one of the biggest challenges that you've really had to deal with as you were kind of balancing the growth of the Martech, at the moment?
I think our biggest markets are in Europe and the US.
Yep.
So, how do you run a global software business out of Australia?
Yeah.
Um, and as we're kind of growing kind of rapidly, but we're not quite there of having critical mass of a HQ in one of those markets. So we have people in all markets, but we don't have like significant critical mass. Ultimately, that's meant that I've just had to change my working hours from like 6:30 a.m. and then you're working, and then you got an Australian shift, and then you might have a UK shift that ends up at like, I don't know, 9, 10 p.m. that ends.
Yeah.
They're long days.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're juggling your kids as well.
Yeah. So when you try to put all of that together, that's,
Yeah.
I think it's the hardest bit has just been around internationalizing the business. But it's a choice. It's either that or just move to the US.
Right. Or just stay local with your customer base and not really kind of support the global reach. How have you overcome it?
Just
Have you
working hard. Just
just
working
looking
hard.
up? Yeah.
Just working hard, hiring some good people in those markets,
Yeah.
traveling. So I probably did early this year, 1 month of travel across the UK and US. It's probably the longest stint I was away from my family. Working those hours from like 6:30 to 10, maybe taking a bit of a break in the middle. There's nothing glamorous about it.
Yeah.
There's no, hey, I hacked. There's a hack to it.
Yeah.
There's just the daily consistency of just turning up and doing the fundamentals.
Yeah. Are there any kind of, so just say you said there was no hack, but do you have any kind of frameworks? Anything at all that kind of helps you plan, and this might be super practical, but planning out your day or planning out your week, or just some sort of a formula that makes you a little bit more effective and efficient, considering you have to juggle so many things at once, so many time zones at certain points.
Yeah, I probably have 3 different things that are really center to me of how I personally manage myself to it.
Okay. Yep.
The first one is we're having metrics, but that's easy for us because we're like not easy, but we're a VC business, a VC backed business. So we
Yep.
have to report. And so we have natural SaaS metrics. We have a CFO in our company. So, but the key for me is having, some level of metrics and accountability, but that's, and that's done by someone else. So
Yep.
it's kind of in autopilot. The second is which sounds in contradiction to the first, but it's not. I don't really think of goals.
Okay.
I just think of more of having systems in place.
Okay.
And those systems, I then try to have other people to make sure that they hold myself who run it. So it could be my head of sales. It could be my head of customer success. It could be my my CTO. It could be whoever it is, but we turn up and they're owning a set of certain things, and there might be a weekly catch up with them. We might have, if we have someone who's out there doing outbound calling for us in our sales team, they know that, hey, this is the times you can kind of book me in, but I'd like to be able to go to see X amount of meetings. But I go, what are the kind of behaviors and rituals that I want to create that allow me to be successful? And then I try to offload about 80 to 90% of them.
This goes back to the hiring good people point that you made earlier. That's
Yeah, even if they're not management, it could just be at any level, but I just try to establish a system that they are. So if it's, hey, you're working with someone who's your marketing person, they might not be the most senior marketing person, but they just, hey, we're going to do these things. You're going to own them. Let's catch up once a week. Here, this is how you can, please, hit me up on Slack for these things.
Yeah.
But I try to fill up my diary. If I look at that in my diary, then it'll be like, hey, if I can walk into a week and 70, 80% of my diary is an autopilot.
Okay.
So right now my diary might be anywhere between 55 to 70 meetings a week, of which 50 of them are someone else is creating.
Right.
So that's the first bit of it. And if you work from 6:30 to 10 p.m., you can fit a lot of meetings in, right? So it's so that's the second one. And then the third one is my own personal to-do list, but I try to keep that to the few things that only I could do. And that might be, hey, if we're going to have to do fundraising, or we need to go and trying to hire a really senior person as part of the exec team. There's only a few things that only I can do, and I can't get really other people that involved in.
Yep.
We can get them involved in the system and stuff like that, but there's some things that I'd have to.
Yeah, you have to
like,
be.
You have to be
own
the
it.
person
Yeah.
owning it. But I try to limit that to only like 2 or 3 things.
Okay.
And they're really meaningful and material.
Yep.
So if you think of it this way, it's like, hey, we have some broad metrics that are being checked in on a monthly
Yep.
basis.
Yep.
Second, we have a bunch of systems that are set up that I just have to turn up to. And
Okay. Yep.
those systems cover 80 to 90%. Then we've got 2 or 3 things that I'll own personally that are big kind of rocks, OKRs, objectives for a quarter that I'll be chipping away at every week.
Right.
And that's generally how I try to keep and manage my time.
So, yeah, and it'll be interesting for me to kind of recap this part. When you say, because you're saying metrics and then you're saying, well, then we have the systems to kind of back that up. And then you have your personal rocks that you have to manage yourself. Were these systems, or I guess these frameworks, thought processes, were these things that you had always kind of kept rolling through the MarTech, then kind of even prior to that, previous companies, previous teams that you've managed? Like, is this just kind of something that you've built and then you've just kept using?
Not, I mean, it's all cobbled together. It's not like, that's my personal system. Like, I'm not talking about, hey, we use a V2 Mum like framework for keeping business, or OKRs, or there's a whole bunch of like metrics, so frameworks to run your business or run an area.
Sure. Yeah.
But this is like and the reason I'm saying it's cobbled together, it's because it relates to my own strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
So if you're not very good at, left alone, being very focused on individual, like consistent, granular things, then it's probably not a good idea to have you as the only person accountable to doing singular, granular things. That's like, and that would be something that I learned over time. I was like, hey, left alone, if I'm the one owning a task where it's quite detailed, it might be important, it's operational, it needs to be really done. It could be in any function. Left alone to myself, I might procrastinate it. I might not do it that well. I might to the bottom of my to-do list. So you just learn of like, hey, what am I good at? What am I not good at? And for stuff that you are good at and you enjoy, sure, you can just make it part of your own to-do list. You're most likely to probably get it. For stuff that is really is important to the business, but you're not necessarily going to enjoy doing it, probably a good idea to have systems around it. That's what I realized. And people who are better at you and more passionate about it or enjoy it more to help in that area.
Right. And how can you maybe give me an example of, let's say, and you've kind of gleaned over it just then around kind of thinking about what you're good at, what you're passionate about. But if I was saying I was an operator, I started my own business, things are starting to kind of go pretty well, but I'm balancing like 12 different things, and I'm thinking about how I can create something that you've just said, right? Just so that I can start looking into who do I need to hire, what kind of goals I need to put together, like what's the kind of fundamental first step I need to be doing to start mapping all this out.
I think the fundamental first step is to grow your revenue.
Okay, yeah.
And the reason I say it is you can't really afford you can't really afford to get any people on board to help you in any way or form. And it doesn't have to be full-time people. It could be like, hey, I'm going to get someone who's a fractional marketer to help me 4 hours a week to do this particular task, to do, say, Facebook ad campaigns, for example, if you're running an e-commerce business.
Right.
But if you can't afford to do that, you can't afford to. It doesn't matter, like you just, it's not, so you just got to go, hey, how do I afford it? And then how do I get people on board? When I first started, it's like, I like to get people who are fractional, who come in as an agency or fractional. And then you say, hey, this is what we want to do. This is the outcomes. We'll give you 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is. There's the parameters. If it doesn't work, let's move on.
Right.
So you move from you to someone who's in some way specializing or in that area for a certain defined time around certain deliverables to full-time people. Is that
Yeah.
kind of what you meant in terms of trying to figure out a transition to get to a whole team that could support you in that way?
Pretty much, yeah. Well, it wasn't the answer I was expecting, but the logic is there, right? Because you're right. It doesn't matter if you're struggling to balance, a bunch of things, a dozen things, even if you don't like it. If you don't have the money to get the support, then you're pretty much screwed. So the first step is to get revenue, to have some level of profitability, and then from there you can start thinking about the things you can kind of tweeze out and get some additional help around.
Yeah, and then you get to critical mass of being able to get revenue, the people are there. And it's also, it helps de-risk it when you hire full time. But everyone that goes through that journey always it's quite convoluted. It ends
Right.
up in a situation where, you hire too soon, you hire too ahead of the curve. Sometimes you have it under the curve. Sometimes you keep doing the role for way too much longer because you think you're kind of good at it because you haven't seen someone who's great at it.
Right.
And then one day you wake up and you're like, oh, actually, I know what great looks like in different areas, whether it's marketing, sales, product, finance. You started to see great people who operate at a really great level. And then you're like, the different people operate for different, like people who are great at 0 to 1 are different to great to 1 to 10 million, who are different to 10 to 100. So there's different people who are great for different life stages, but you start to realize, oh, okay, hang on, I've seen that now. And once you've seen it, it's hard to go back. You won't be like, oh, I've seen what a really great CMO is. So now you go and talk to someone else.
You'll be
Just not-
able to
just
pick it
not-
out. Yeah. Okay. But what you're saying is there is no real silver bullet around this. And if I'm trying to kind of extrapolate from you, Raj, that based on all this experience, this is the most optimal way of doing it. There's not really.
Yeah, I think the most optimal way of doing it, if there was, everyone would just read the book and then
Right.
go
yeah.
out and
Well,
build really
that's why
successful
there's like
businesses.
so many like startup books, but so
Yeah.
many startups fail.
So I mean, so books, frameworks,
Yeah.
I think at the core of it, it's like, hey, I need to deeply understand a customer and I have to have an opinion. I have an opinion on how I can make their world better
Okay.
than others. So that's the first bit. Then the second bit is I need to grow some revenue to be able to see that vision come to life.
Yeah.
And then as I grow revenue, see that life, I would step into people who could take distinct areas off me with hard deliverables. And then I'd start to hire full-time people around that. And that all could happen in simultaneously. It's not all linear, but I think they're all fundamental steps you just need to go through. And I think part of the problem is when you don't go through that, it's, and you just skip that. And then you go, well, I really need to just go and raise capital because then I can go and build this business. You still have the same problem even if you can raise capital, you still have the same problem of but it becomes so much harder to raise capital in the first place because you haven't done those fundamental steps.
Right. It's I think it's a really good segue talking about cap raising here. But just going back to what you were saying, I think I can kind of rip what you've just said in the last maybe minute and possibly do a $10 ebook that I could sell to go from zero to one. But that's really interesting. Really good segue to kind of the next topic here. Fundraising. Elusive for a lot of people, not too elusive for you, Raj. But a lot of people who start their own company, it's kind of like the one of two routes. They're like, okay, well, I'm going to bootstrap this and find something. Oh, and there's kind of like little things in between, like getting the bank of mum and dad and family and friends raising. But of course, the next big thing that they're thinking about is if I can't bootstrap this and I need cash and I need support, then let's look at fundraising. So you successfully raised for the Martech a couple of years ago. It was, I believe, it was $8 million. Do I have that correct? Yeah. I'd love to kind of understand more about some of the learnings that you've had now that you've successfully successfully completed it? What are some learnings here that you weren't really even thinking about before raising, that you can kind of share?
Learnings in the sense of how to raise capital, or learnings in terms of how to deploy that capital?
Let's go how to raise. I'm thinking about the audience here, and I think I think learning how to deploy capital will be a fantastic issue for the majority. So let's talk about learning how to raise, nuances of like learning and getting that capital, engaging with VCs. Like, what are those things here that we can kind of expand on?
Yeah, sure. I think at the core, I came in with the mindset I didn't want to raise capital,
Okay.
which makes it easier to raise capital.
Okay.
So,
Sorry, expand on that one a little bit more.
at a really base level, venture capital, which I think is the kind of capital you're talking about.
Yes.
Venture capital is a specialized asset class that's designed for a certain return and a certain risk profile.
Okay.
And they raise capital from other people, so called limited partners, and then they make promises to those limited partners of a certain return, and when they're giving their funds back, and then they typically the VCs want to raise, typically often more funds. So that's kind of how their whole cycle works. So I think the first thing is I came in there going, I didn't want to raise capital, which put me in a strong position because I could, before we raised capital, I funded it myself.
Okay.
And that was useful. I funded because I had another business. So I funded it, got the business up and running. And then there's a point where we needed capital to accelerate. We needed capital to properly execute on the opportunity. But at that stage, we already had people also reaching out to us.
Okay.
We reached out to some, but we had a lot, or most of them, reach out to us in our first round.
Yep.
So it comes down with like, hey, if you come in with the mindset, I'm going to build a great business, I'm going to build the fundamentals of great business. That's a good starting point where you're probably putting yourself in a position where you could start to go, hey, do I want to raise? Why do I want to raise? What am I going to use the funds for? So that's the hard bit. That's I think the hardest bit. The other two bits that I'll talk about could be done. You can study it. You can think about it, study it. But the hard bit of like thinking, hey, how do I actually build a good business? How do I fund it myself? How do I get up and running? How do I get the right people? How do I understand the customer problem? All the stuff we spoke about earlier. Doing those fundamentals well. The second bit is, hey, is it a type of business that VCs invest in? Is it a type of business that you need venture capital for?
Okay. Yep.
So typically, if you're trying to build a VC business, you're trying to build a business that ultimately, now if you look at something listing on the NASDAQ, it's 500 million ARRs, the new table stakes for it.
Yeah.
Like, are you building a business that has the potential to do 500 million ARR?
Yep.
So can you build a business which has the ability to be venture scale? And most people you think about, they can't. Even 100 million ARR, which is what goes around in all those like SASTA and all those, seems to be a big number. People thinking about, hey, how do I do 500? How do I do a billion ARR? They're not thinking that. They're thinking, hey, I'm not saying you have to go and build one all the way through, but you need, if you're going to go and build a business to say 25 million USD ARR, so $40 million ARR business here, and you want to sell it for $500 million to give the return to investors, whatever it is, you want to build that. You got to sell to someone else who thinks they can grow that business from $500 million to $2.5 billion.
Yeah.
Because they're not buying the business to keep it exactly the same. You know,
that's
giving
right.
you $500 million to be like,
they want the return.
They want their return on the thing.
Yeah.
you've got to be able to say, hey, this business can get to there.
Okay. Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't actually sell it. You can't sell it to someone else can't. So whether or not you go through the whole journey yourself, which most people don't, even most 99.9% of VCs don't sit like when you VC-backed businesses don't end up becoming an IPO business, but they've got the ability to say that whether they do it or someone else does it, an acquirer does it.
Yeah.
They say the acquirer can go, okay, well, can become quite a large business. So I don't think most people are thinking it like that when they're asking for capital. Typically, when they're asking for capital, they're going, hey, I need a bit of capital because I can turn this into, I don't know, in 15, 20 million, 40 million. And that would be a lot of money. For them, they'd be like, well, that's a lot of money for me. So it's like, but that's not the way the VCs who are investing, that's not their profile. They're like, hey, I want people who can typically give me the opportunity to return the fund.
Yeah.
Versus oftentimes when you're sitting there, you're like, well, if we do this and they give us, I don't know, $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, 20 million, I give them 3 times their money, 5 times their money, 10 times their money. That's pretty good. That is good, but you need to be able to show that, you could return the fund for a lot of people. So to actually get venture capital, at least tier 1 venture capital. So that's the second thing. It's the size of the business you're envisioning.
Right.
So it's the first one is, hey, build a great business. Second is the size of the business you're thinking about trying to build and how you think about building that business. So, and then the third one is, hey, to do that, you then got to go, hey, what are some of the milestones that we need to do to get to the next stage? So if you're doing a Series A, what are the milestones that we need to show to get to a Series B where someone can mark up that investment? And how do we step through that in a frame that's believable, logical, and you could execute it?
And are you saying that somebody needs to think about the next stage before they've even raised for the prior stage? So if I'm raising for a pre-seed or seed round, I should already be thinking about, my unit economics, what it's going to look like at a Series A, B, C, whatever. Or do I don't need to be that detailed? Or do I need to be that detailed?
I don't think you necessarily, potentially, yes. But what you if you think about it from an investor's point of view, they're saying, hey, I'm going to give you money at a really basic level. I'm going to give you some money and I'm going to want some money back.
Yes.
Over a time period.
Yeah.
And the way that they'll know if you're on track is that there'll be some markers along the way.
Yep.
So if you say to them, hey, I want X, and then I'll give you this Y as a marker, which could be, I'm in a Series A or seed, I'm going to get to a Series A by this stage. This is the shape of the business, how it looks like. And then, by the way, this is how the total, terminal value is what it could look like in the total future. If everything goes well, we could build a franchise out of this. That's what you need to be articulating. You don't need to articulate, seed, Series A, B, C, D. You don't have to articulate at that level of detail at the start, but you need to be able to show that, hey, if I gave you this money, how are you going to use that money to get me to the next marker that shows you're on track?
Right. You need to be clear about the direction that you're going. And it needs to be clear in the investor's eyes. And they need to be able to see the progression or the road to progression. I think that kind of ties into point number 2 as well, to what you were saying around, you have to really think that, quantitatively it's that bigger number, but that's what they're thinking about in future raises, future rounds. That's what they see. It's really interesting feedback interesting insights, I should say, because I think the first time we were trying to raise, as an absolute idiot, I'm kind of thinking, number one, we were thinking about raising and we're speaking to VCs and I'm like, we need the money, right? Which kind of goes against, your first principle, which is, well, you're not supposed to go there and think that you want the money or need the money. But you're like, if we do get that money, here's what we can do with it, right? So that mindset was already way off. And then the second part was, and maybe just to clarify, this was a couple of years ago when we were building that mobile gaming studio. Then the second point was thinking about what I wanted to raise for, and I'd say that my kind of my understanding of the financials was definitely not there. I'm just thinking, okay, well, we want to hire these X amount of people. We want to hire for these teams. We want to pay the salary. Uh, so, we're raising this amount so that we can kind of cover these expenses. And yeah, we'll be getting some pretty cool returns because the market is growing and we're seeing these companies do a multiplier in growth. That was the justification for us to go out there and start speaking to investors. But that obviously is extremely convoluted, unclear, and not even aligned to what the investors are looking at.
Yep. I'd say that's it's great that you had that much self-awareness to come out of that and think through that. Because I think it's hard to understand and align yourself to. It's just selling to a certain type of customer. Like all the stuff we said at the start around
Understanding the customer,
understanding the customer, making them look good,
right?
Having stewardship of they're going to put some social currency. Raising capital is a specialized form of selling where you understand your customer and you need to make them look good. You need to deliver on what you say.
Yeah.
But I think if you don't understand the customer in the first place, it's very hard to sell anything to them.
That is a really good mental shift, right? Treating them as an ICP and treating them like a customer. And it's kind of like an evidence. Yes, you are selling to them. Yes, this is what you want from them as well. And when you say it out loud, it's obvious that, you should be treating them like the customer. You should know them, know their pains, know what they care about, know what they're looking for. But it's always, again, the word I say is elusive because, you kind of just treat the VCs as a completely different category. And then everything that you're doing with your customers and your prospects, you're kind of foregoing all that when you're having a conversation with the VC and you just jump into a room and you're just like, blah, like here's everything we need.
Yeah, I think it's because there's not many people who spend a lot of time selling to that type of customer.
Yeah.
If I went and, for example, moved into another area, if I was suddenly in FMCG, I was working for Unilever selling Mars bars to like territory stores, I wouldn't really know what was important to them, like how to sell to them, what's there. Like I would need to go and learn, what is important to that customer profile. What do we have that's different? Why? I think the reason why it's often easier to go and if you're a person who's raised capital before to sell more capital, because a lot of people work on pattern recognition. So that's that whatever it is, good or bad, but it is what it is. So a lot of those VCs are like, hey, if they've done it before, well, we can trust them. But the bigger one is you understand your customer. Like if you've raised capital before and you've done it again, you understand this customer versus if you haven't done it before, you're just trying, you don't really understand your customer. You don't understand their levers, drivers, what's important to them. So you just, I think that's actually the reason why it's easier. And once you're a second-time founder or someone who's just raised capital for first-time founder, whatever it is, once you've raised capital before and you've done it again and you've done it rounds and you're talking to them because now you've got a board, you have to talk to them pretty regularly, give them investor updates. You get into the view of what is important to this customer, why is it important, how is it important. You have so many conversations around it. Then when you have to raise future capital, you got a much bigger head start because you've lived in.
Yeah, you know it. You haven't read it. You're not just reading about it or watching about it or getting advice from somebody. You're living and breathing in it. You know the nuances that make them tick. You know the nuances that make as everybody that's a part of the ecosystem tick. So you know your customer. Yeah, that's really interesting. We last year we caught up, and I remember, and I'm not too sure if you kind of remember this conversation, but I was telling you that we were looking at raising again, and I wanted to kind of hear some of your thoughts around this, just really high level, one of many topics that we were talking about. And you said, Anthony, you need to think about what kind of company you want to run, right? Could you expand a little bit more there? Because I thought that was like a really interesting thing to say. What kind of company do I want? Like, do I want a VC backed company? Do I want to work in do I want to work in a VC-backed company? Do I understand what that actually means, entails? Or do what I'm doing and work in a company that you have, I guess, complete control over, complete autonomy over? Could you expand on that a little bit more? Because I reckon that was something that you think about it, of course. Like, oh, okay, well, what do you have to do with these now that you have VC backing? Now that you have funds, that's not yours. But inherently, I didn't think too much about it. Can you expand on that one a little bit more?
Yeah, I think when you hear it often in the world, they kind of break it up into this concept of like bootstrapped or VC or investor backed. I don't think it's that binary, and then sometimes they have goes at each other. Those two people on opposite sides of camps, like, hey, the VC these a lifestyle business, which often sounds like a bit of a slight,
Right.
and the other one on the other side would be like, hey, VCs. There's a huge portion of them that end up worth nothing,
Right.
at the end of it. So at the end, but I don't think of it that way. I just think of it more as if you raise capital, you've got a new customer that you need to support. And that customer is a long-term customer. They're not
Right.
going anywhere.
Yep.
They're connected to your business for pretty much as long as your business is around.
Right.
So that customer has a set of expectations that
Right.
you've sold them on. And then it's a question of, hey, do you want to deliver on that? It's a bit like if you want a big contract
Right.
in your
Right.
business, and then that customer said, hey, they wanted demands for new software upgrades or new
Right.
features or new that, you might go, that's great. That customer's really helping me build my roadmap. Or you might go, man, that customer's such a big distraction because my core business is here and they're stopping me from doing that. So I think ultimately, when you're raising capital, you've got a customer you've committed to. Yep. And you need to steward and manage those expectations, which is reasonable because they've entrusted you with something in return, which is, capital. Then it fundamentally comes down to, did you sign up a good customer or not? As in, did you get capital that was useful with the expectations useful? And can you deliver on the promises that you made to them? So I think when either of those two things go south, then you might be going, hey, maybe did I do the right thing? Did I not do the right thing? All the rest of it. But the reality is once you've got that customer, you committed to it. You can't change it. It's not a customer that would just leave, So I think when we were talking about it, I was saying, hey, do you want to commit to that type of customer is what I was trying to say.
Talking about you're committing long term with this customer. This customer has their own needs, their own wants, the way that they'd like you to kind of take things. If I don't know, if I met, say, an investor like an Air Tree in Australia, or maybe I went to the US and I met someone like Kevin O'Leary, and both of them are coming to the table. They're like, we really want to invest in you, what you're doing, your vision. What can I do to not fall into this trap of now being stuck with a customer that we don't see eye to eye with?
Yeah, I think that comes down to fundamentally how much level of conviction have you got with your business plan?
Okay.
Because they're signing up to your business plan. They're not in the business of telling you how to run your business fundamentally. They've got other investments. They're in the business of investing. So I think if you've got a really high degree of conviction that, hey, if I get this capital, I can do A, B, C, D, E, I'd encourage you to go and take that capital if it made sense to them. And it could be a business that having a smaller portion of the pie is still worthwhile. That's the other second point that I was going to allude to, which was everyone talks about, hey, having a smaller portion of a bigger pie is a great idea. But that is only a great idea if someone will buy the bigger pie at the end.
Right. Yeah.
It's not that great if no one wants the bigger pie and now you're with 40% less of the pie and you can't take profits out of it and you're just stuck. So it comes down to this view of like, do you genuinely believe you are going to build a business that's worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars?
Yeah.
And if you are not, then you're probably not ready, or it's not a right type of business for venture.
Yeah.
So, and you'll find that pretty shortly when you are unable to take profits out. You'll be getting smaller and smaller
Right. Okay. Right.
without raising outside capital, growing it, because you have all the optionality. Then you can take profits if you want to make it profitable. You can, in the future, if you want, you could go and raise capital.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's all I was trying to say at the start. I think the idea of, hey, I need to grow my business, so I need more money, so let me just go away and try to raise capital, is not great.
Yeah.
Because even if you do raise capital, it's a game that you might not want to win anyway. You're playing a game 3 or 4 years down the track, earning maybe, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of your own business. Take profits out, can't exit.
Okay. Yeah. So I thought, but you tied it up pretty well. Really, fundamentally, what you're saying is, you got to know your customer. You got to know why you're getting into, like, why you want it in the first place. You tied it to the fact that, well, you don't want to go there purely because you need that capital, because you could easily, if you somehow slip through the gaps and make it through to the end, you might end up being in a position where you're screwed, because, well, you needed that capital, right? You're setting yourself up to fail in that case.
Yeah, I think it's just being really clear about your goals and what you're trying to do. And I think that also then when you're really clear of, like, this is why we're racing, this is really what we're going to do, it just comes out. It comes out in the conviction of which you say it. It comes out when you say, hey, it makes more logical sense to them.
Yeah.
When you're coming up and going, hey, I'm not really too sure if this is a venture business. If I don't really, I don't know if I can make it into something that is meaningful and material, but I just need the money to get to the next kind of stage of hiring some people. I think they see a lot of that as well. Like, they're trying to weed that out.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. And I know that, with previous and prior fundraising efforts, not being super clear had became so evident. You know what? So evident whilst I was pitching, right? Just going through the slide deck that you presented just to present to them, right? In what you believe is the right structure, just to try to raise, and going through it. And as you're kind of going through your script, you're just going, shit, what the hell am I saying? Like, yeah, I believe what I'm saying, but these are just words now. And obviously I'm feeling that. And it was evident that within, 48 hours, they felt that too, because, they'd come back and say, yeah, we loved your energy, but honestly, it just doesn't seem like you're ready. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
So that totally makes sense. Mate, we're just going to switch gears. We're going to wrap up with just 2 really quick questions, and we'd like to kind of follow a bit of the structure of kind of really quick questions, getting actionable insights for the listeners, so that they have some takeaways outside of, everything that we've spoken about. So short, quick, fast. Are you ready for it?
Yep. Go for it.
Awesome. Number 1, what was the most underrated advice, Raj, that you have ever received that you felt was next level for you?
Focus on the next step. Don't focus 10 steps ahead. Just focus on the next step, the next day, the next hour. And that was underrated for me because I like focusing on the steps ahead. I could also do it more naturally. So it's underrated because doing it every time I've done it and just focused on what's in front of me, my businesses have moved forward faster than ever.
Okay. So it's proven, it's written on the walls.
For me,
Now when you shift your focus into, and are we putting time frames here? Are we saying, like, just
Every
looking
day,
at tomorrow,
day in tomorrow,
day in
just
day.
try to get something out of tomorrow that I think about. How do I get something meaningful out of that day?
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Um, I'm going to plug in one thing here, which is the most underrated advice that I have gotten, which is actually from you, right? And this is why I wanted to plug it in. So when we used to work together, and I remember, you know, I was leaving Salient and I was working in my first tech role. I was pretty nervous, and I wanted to get, you know, some pretty like, you know, advice from anyone, right? I remember speaking to you, and your advice to me was around learning, right? Learning and asking questions, which was essentially, when you start a new company, you're going to have a lot of questions, right? Every question that you have, starting from the start of the week up until the end of the week, write it down. They go around asking every single question. Just write down your questions, because guaranteed that throughout that week or throughout the fortnight, whatever it may be, you're going to answer some of these questions yourself, right? And you actually have something substantial to go back to, you know, your manager, whoever's your buddy or your mentor. And it sounds so small when I say that out loud, but the impact that it's had, particularly in terms of the time savings for me, time savings for the people who buddied with me, right?
Yeah.
Is tremendous. And the time savings for the different people in the different teams that I had to kind of reach out to was tremendous. And even as an entrepreneur, saving all those questions until, you know, I met with an advisor, yeah, it saved so much time and maybe probably some costs as well in kind of just paid consultants. I thought that was huge, and I kind of like strive with that. I work with that every single time I'm in this learning process.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah. I think that draft email concept, keeping a live draft email for yourself,
Oh yeah,
where you write down all those things. It's great.
as long as you don't just have somebody in the two and accidentally click send.
Yeah.
And maybe for the better, it might open some new doors. Last question. So you've gotten some really good successful years as a CEO of the Bartek. And you know, you spent some really good years, you know, crushing it at Salient and in your, you know, prior roles as well. If you were speaking to an aspiring entrepreneur, someone that is looking to start their own business, start their own thing, it doesn't matter if they're straight out of uni or if they're doing a 9 to 5 and they're looking to kind of pivot, what would be the number one takeaway that you would want them to go away and think about before anything else?
I'd say commit to the problem. Commit to an area where you think, hey, I'm happy to, if they start right at the start, I'm happy to really deep dive and learn into. But ultimately, you're getting paid for, I think people call it like a unique insight, but you're getting paid for is an opinion on a problem, an opinion on a problem that's different to others.
Okay. Yep.
And I think what you want to be able to really commit to is having a highly differentiated opinion.
A highly differentiated. This is not to be confused with a solution.
No, it's a highly differentiated opinion on the problem itself. Like,
yes,
how does that problem look like? And therefore, that also can lead to a solution, right? You still want to have an opinion on your problem and solution. Ultimately, you have a point of view on something of this, how you think this problem and solution should look like. But it's at this, I think people don't commit to that. And I think even if you commit to it, the hard bit, and I've had this to me, so it's not like it never stops. It's like the ability to stay committed at it. Because as the company grows, it's so much easier to be like, okay, I can focus on other things, you know? But ultimately, people are paying for a point of view that you've got.
Yeah.
On a point of view on their problem, a point of view that's on the solution. The best people in the world who want to work with you, they're coming from backing your point of view. So, you know, how do you go deep into that and have like a world-class different point of view? That's a hard thing to do. You need to stay committed to that.
How do you build that unique, that unique?
I think it starts off by, I think it starts off by going, what do you feel like you understand well?
Okay.
Like, it's hard if I suddenly went into a whole new area. It's hard for me to to get a unique point of view, I need to have time to study it, learn it. That it's not possible. It's just hard. Versus if you, in my case, I was combining the world of software with HR. I brought two different kind of experiences that I was in.
Right.
Marketing software, then HR, and I brought into talent marketing. So I saw the world in different ways because of my experiences that I had.
Okay.
So, if you have different experiences in different industries, or you're deep into a certain area, or you just bringing together different ideas together.
Right.
That's how you typically. So for me, I was in two separate industries, and I saw that there was an opportunity to go into a third industry, which combined some of these insights of why don't you treat talent the same way you treated customers, with a journey-based approach, like treat them with the right message at the right time. Why don't you? And then as I saw into going into the world of talent marketing, I was like, hey, especially with AI coming, this AI is democratizing all functions, whether it's the legal function, whether it's any function that now is specialized, siloed. AI is starting to democratize and make it accessible. So, when I look at the MarTech and I go, how are we thinking about democratizing employer branding? How do we think about treating talent in a very personalized way? Those are those two problems that I'm trying to tackle. I come at it from spending some years in marketing software, some years in recruitment, some years in employer branding, talking to those people. They shape how I think about those two problems. And there's not many other people in the world who have a background where they're like, yeah, I was in marketing software, then I went into recruitment or HR, then I was spending time in employer branding. It's the combination of your world experiences that often, and I think that's also what fundamentally at seed and early seed people are backing. Hey, has this founder or founding team got unique insights that could become a really large business?
Yep.
And what is those and why?
Yeah, that's really good. Having that deep opinion about that problem, and I actually love the fact that while you were kind of explaining that, you pretty much went full circle, and you're talking about the problem in the lens of the customers, right? And it's ultimately it's being able to form an opinion about the problem that your customer has, not just some arbitrary problem in an industry that you can kind of just shape up. So it's all, at the end of the day, it's all about the customer, all about the prospects, the clients, whoever it may be.
That's just the fundamentals of business, mate. I feel like people who do that well end up becoming pretty successful. There's no shortcuts to it.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. Raj, just to wrap up here, anything that you wanted to plug for you, any final notes, anything about the MarTech you might be hiring, anything at all?
Yeah,
Now's your space
Sure.
before we wrap up.
Yeah. I mean, if you love AI, you understand the world of employer branding, talent marketing. We're hiring in the US and UK. We're growing on all vectors. So hit us up. Love to talk to people who are passionate and got real domain expertise. So, but yeah, hey mate, I'm happy to help. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for that, Raj, and I appreciate having you on as well. Just before we close this off, who should they be reaching out to?
It's a good question. Just you can reach out to me. I'll funnel you into the right kind of functional head. But happy to, if people are proactive enough to reach out to me, happy to respond back.
Amazing. If you are talent, you are interested in AI, you're based in the US or the UK, and you really like what the MarTech is doing, Raj's the go-to guy.
Cool.
Hey, did you guys enjoy that episode? Tune into our podcast fortnightly, where I interview extraordinary people doing extraordinary things, sharing their insights and their stories about entrepreneurship. So whether you're aspiring, whether you're already doing your own thing, or experimenting while hustling at your 9 to 5, this one is for you guys. And if you like what you're hearing, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, follow us on our socials below, and we'll see you next time.